Emma woke up early in the morning, feeling a slight flutter of excitement. This day was particularly important to her. She was starting an internship at one of the city's most prestigious aquariums. Her love for marine life had blossomed in childhood, when she spent hours watching documentaries about ocean depths. This internship was her chance to move closer to her dream of becoming a marine biologist. Tying her hair into a neat ponytail and putting on her uniform, Emma looked at herself in the mirror. Determination shone in her eyes. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but her diligence and talent were her greatest assets. Her father, the mayor of the city, had always taught her, "Show that you can do more than what's expected of you. People will notice." Arriving at the aquarium, she inhaled the fresh scent of salt water. The building, with its massive tanks for marine creatures, seemed almost magical. She was greeted by the personnel manager, a cheerful, middle-aged man who gave her a tour and introduced her to the team. Most of the staff welcomed her warmly, but Emma couldn't help noticing two men standing off to the side with cold expressions. Tom, a burly and somewhat gruff-looking man, lazily glanced her way, while Larry, thin and smirking, seemed to whisper something to his companion. Emma felt that her presence had irritated them, though she couldn't understand why. On her first day, her tasks were straightforward: accompanying tour groups, observing marine life behavior, and assisting with feeding the fish. Emma eagerly embraced every opportunity to learn, asking her colleagues questions and jotting down all the advice she received in her notebook. However, Tom and Larry occasionally interfered with her work, seizing any chance to make snide remarks. "Hey, intern, are you sure you know which side of the net to hold?" Tom teased mockingly as Emma tried to help catch fish for the shark feeding. Emma maintained a composed smile, choosing not to respond to the provocation. By the evening, it was clear that not everyone appreciated her efforts. Tom and Larry continued to behave condescendingly, making comments and refusing to take her seriously. Even when interacting with other staff members, their tone grew more dismissive whenever she was mentioned. Emma worked hard to stay professional and not let their behavior affect her. She knew that her skills and knowledge would eventually speak for themselves, and that her work would be her strongest argument against detractors. As she left for home, she felt a slight fatigue but resolved not to let the tense atmosphere ruin her mood. She understood the importance of patience and professionalism in earning respect, yet a lingering thought gnawed at her. Why did I become their target? Emma didn't know yet that these early trials were just the beginning of a much larger conflict waiting for her. A few days into her internship, Emma was starting to adjust to her new responsibilities. She focused on every task with diligence, whether it was feeding the fish or assisting with small tours for visitors. Her passion for marine life and her eagerness to learn gradually won over most of the staff. However, Tom and Larry remained persistent in their taunts. Their remarks grew sharper, and it seemed they were looking for any excuse to humiliate her. One day, Emma was assigned to assist in the shark aquarium. It was the largest and most impressive tank in the aquarium, and working with it was considered a prestigious responsibility. Her task was to prepare feeding equipment and check the water quality. Emma felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, knowing how important this assignment was to her professional growth. As she leaned over the tank to check the readings on the sensors, Tom and Larry stood nearby. They exchanged smirks and whispered to each other as if planning something. Emma, accustomed to their behavior, ignored them and concentrated on her work. "Hey, Miss Prodigy, aren't you afraid to stand so close?" Someone might accidentally give you a little push, Tom said with a sly grin. Emma paid no attention to his words, continuing with her task. But a moment later, she felt a sudden push on her back. It all happened in an instant. Her feet slipped and she found herself in the water. The soft sound of water splashing was followed by a loud commotion. People nearby turned toward the tank. Emma had fallen into the shark aquarium. Visitors gasped, and some pulled out their phones to record the scene. Startled by the sudden movement, the sharks quickly swam to the far side of the tank. Emma, despite the shock, quickly composed herself. She knew the most important thing was to remain calm, avoiding any sudden movements. She turned toward the ladder and swam in that direction. Tom and Larry stood above, laughing loudly. They clearly thought their joke would be taken lightly, watching Emma climb out of the water without showing a trace of panic. Soaked but calm, she emerged from the tank, her clothes clinging to her as she stood tall. Her eyes burned with icy determination, but she said nothing. "Relax, it's just a joke," Tom said nonchalantly, trying to appear carefree. Emma stared at them silently, her emotions carefully concealed. Inside, she felt a storm of anger and humiliation, but she understood that reacting now would only play into their hands. A crowd of employees and visitors began to gather, murmuring about what had happened. Some whispered, others glanced disapprovingly at Tom and Larry, but no one intervened. It was as if everyone was waiting to see how Emma would respond. She wiped her face with her hand and turned to the manager, who had just arrived, trying to assess the situation. Her voice was steady, but carried an unmistakable edge of resolve. "I don't think this should go unnoticed." These words marked the beginning of something Tom and Larry couldn't yet grasp. Their joke had just escalated into a much larger problem than they could have imagined. That evening, Emma returned home, her mind racing with thoughts about what had happened. She tried to keep her emotions in check, but inside, a storm was raging. She felt not only humiliated, but also powerless in the face of such blatant mistreatment. The memory of falling, Tom and Larry's laughter, and the shocked faces of those around her replayed over and over in her mind. After changing into dry clothes, Emma sat at her desk and began drafting an official letter to the aquarium's management. She described the incident in detail, emphasizing the unprofessional and unacceptable behavior of her colleagues. Emma knew that staying silent in such a situation would mean condoning what had happened. Once the email was sent, she hesitated for a moment, then picked up her phone. She debated whether to call her father, but finally decided she needed his support. Her father, the mayor of the city, was a principled man who had always taught her to stand up for her rights and fight for justice, no matter how challenging the situation. "Hi, Dad," she said when he answered. "Emma, what's wrong? You sound tired." He immediately noticed the tension in her voice. Emma recounted everything that had happened, trying to speak calmly, though her voice occasionally trembled with frustration. Her father listened intently, not interrupting. When she finished, there was a brief silence on the line. "You did the right thing by telling me," he finally said. "We can't let them treat you or anyone this way. I'll take care of it tomorrow." His tone was firm but measured. Emma knew her father wasn't one to stir up unnecessary drama, but he also wouldn't tolerate injustice. He preferred to handle such matters calmly but decisively. The next morning, the aquarium was abuzz with activity. Management called an emergency meeting to address the growing fallout. The video of the incident, captured by a visitor, had already gone viral on social media, sparking public outrage. People were condemning the actions of the employees involved, calling for accountability. Later that day, Emma's father arrived at the aquarium with a lawyer and a small group of journalists. His presence immediately heightened the tension among the staff. He wasn't there to make a scene, but his arrival sent a clear message. This situation would not be swept under the rug. Emma learned about her father's visit and felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she was grateful for his support. On the other, she wished she could handle the situation on her own. But this had already become more than just a personal conflict. Throughout the day, her father and his team gathered statements and evidence. The aquarium's management realized the gravity of the situation and that ignoring it was no longer an option. Meanwhile, Tom and Larry still didn't grasp the seriousness of what they had done. They dismissed it as an overreaction and continued to laugh about the incident among themselves. They had no idea that the consequences of their actions were already unfolding, turning what they thought was a harmless prank into a turning point. Not only for Emma, but also for their own futures. The next day, the aquarium was in turmoil. Management had called an emergency meeting. Supervisors, legal advisors, and senior staff gathered to discuss the incident, trying to figure out how to minimize the damage to their reputation. The video of the event, recorded by a visitor, had already spread across social media, sparking widespread outrage. Later that morning, Emma's father, accompanied by a lawyer and several journalists, arrived at the aquarium. He wasn't there to create a spectacle, but he knew the situation required public attention to ensure proper resolution. His calm but firm demeanor immediately shifted the atmosphere among the staff. When he entered the conference room where the aquarium's leadership had assembled, the air grew tense. His voice was steady and authoritative as he spoke. "This isn't just a joke or a misunderstanding," he began. "We're talking about behavior that undermines human dignity and the professional standards expected from this institution. It's about ensuring that such actions never happen again." Management realized they could no longer downplay what had happened. They agreed to conduct a thorough investigation and take immediate action. Tom and Larry were called in for questioning. At first, they tried to brush it off, claiming it was just a harmless joke. But their excuses crumbled when the video was shown, and the seriousness of the situation was laid out before them. "A joke?" Emma's father asked, his gaze unwavering. "Do you really think it's acceptable to jeopardize someone's safety and dignity in the name of humor?" Larry remained silent, while Tom mumbled something incoherent, visibly uncomfortable. Their smugness from the previous days had completely evaporated. The gravity of their actions was sinking in, and their behavior now seemed small and petty against the backdrop of the public attention the case had garnered. After the investigation, the aquarium issued an official statement condemning the actions of the two employees and reaffirming its commitment to maintaining a respectful and professional environment. Tom and Larry were terminated from their positions, and management publicly apologized to Emma. Despite everything, Emma chose to stay at the aquarium and continue her internship. She wanted to prove, not to her detractors, but to herself, that she could rise above the situation and succeed. That evening, her father spoke to her as they sat together. "You're strong, Emma. You could have walked away, but you chose to stay and show the world who you truly are. I'm proud of you." Emma smiled, knowing that this victory wasn't just about standing up to injustice. It was about finding her inner strength. The incident gained widespread attention, sparking conversations about respect, dignity, and accountability in the workplace. For many, It was a lesson in the importance of standing up for what is right. And for Emma, it was a personal triumph, a testament to her resilience and character.